There are names we hear every February. Names etched in the soundtracks of American progress. Names like King, Parks, Malcolm, Ella Baker, giants whose shadows stretch across the pages of history. But there is another kind of hero, the kind who never stood behind a microphone, never led a march with cameras flashing, never had a speech replayed in textbooks, yet moved mountains with footsteps nobody followed, and courage nobody saw. This is the story of one of them. A story tucked inside dusty courthouse files, buried in faded newspapers, whispered across small southern towns. A story America never made loud, though it should have. Tonight, we journey into the life of Claudia C.J. Jefferson, a civil rights activist whose resistance shaped communities, saved lives, challenged systems, and yet whose name barely echoes outside the neighborhoods she fought for. Her life didn't start in spotlight, but in silence, in a kind of silence born from fear, segregation, and survival. And what she chose to do with that silence became a thunder that changed everything around her. This is a story of resistance, the story of courage, the story of a woman America forgot. But we will remember tonight. Before we continue, if stories like this move you, stories that uncover hidden heroes and reclaim forgotten legacies, hit the like button, drop a comment, share this video, and subscribe so these stories reach the people who need them. Your support keeps this history alive. All right, let's step back into the story. C.J. Jefferson was born in 1931 in the small town of Millstone, Alabama, a town carved from red dirt cotton fields and quiet resentment, the kind of place where segregation wasn't just a rule, it was the air, the water, the unspoken law between neighbors. Her mother scrubbed floors for white families. Her father worked long nights loading freight at a rail yard that would never hire him for anything higher. C.J. learned early that the world was split in two, the side that could speak freely and the side that had to swallow every truth to stay alive. But inside her, something refused to stay silent. It began one afternoon in 1943. C.J. was 12 when she watched her father get shoved off a sidewalk to make way for a white teenager no older than she was. Her father didn't fight back. He didn't raise his voice. He simply stepped into the street, mud splashing up his trousers, and kept walking. But the look in his eyes, that quiet hurt, burned itself into hers. Later that night, she asked him, "Daddy, why didn't you say something?" He replied, "Because if I do, you grow up without a father." That was the moment she made a silent vow. If she ever found a way to challenge the world that stole her father's dignity, she would, even if it scared her, even if she had to do it alone. By the 1950s, the South was boiling. Whispers of change floated from Montgomery to Birmingham, from bus boycotts to lunch counter sit-ins. But Millstone, Alabama, was behind the times, a town where the sheriff's badge doubled as a threat, and the Klan didn't bother with hoods because everyone already knew who they were. C.J. worked as a schoolteacher in a local black elementary school. Her classroom had broken desks, torn books, and windows that whistled in the winter breeze. Yet every day she walked into that room with fire in her step. She taught her students history, not just the approved version, but the truth, the heroes their textbooks erased, the inventions never credited, the victories never celebrated. Her classroom became a sanctuary, a place where young black children learned that they were more than the world told them, more than workers, more than footnotes, more than statistics. They were brilliant. They were capable. They were descendants of kings and queens, fighters and survivors. But teaching truth in the segregated South wasn't just an act of education. It was an act of rebellion. And rebellion always has consequences. In the spring of 1957, Millstone School Board announced a new policy. Black teachers were forbidden from teaching unauthorized historical material. Everyone knew what that meant. Stop teaching black excellence. Stop inspiring black children. Stop disrupting the order of things. But C.J. refused. One morning, she handed out a lesson about Frederick Douglass, not from a textbook, but handwritten on sheets of notebook paper. A white superintendent walked in unannounced. He saw the papers. He listened to her students reciting Douglass's words on freedom, and his face turned the color of rage. That afternoon, C.J. was fired, not for misconduct, not for breaking any written rule, but because she dared to teach black children that they mattered. The news shook the town. Parents were furious. Students cried, and whispers began to spread. Maybe it's time to fight back. Maybe she's the one to lead us. But the sheriff had other plans. 2 nights later, C.J. woke to headlights shining through her window. A truck full of white men parked outside her house. No hoods, no masks, just hate. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. A brick shattered her front window. A warning. But warnings only work on people willing to be afraid. C.J. wasn't. The next morning, she walked to the courthouse and filed a complaint. A black woman, alone, standing against the sheriff's friends. That single act lit the fuse. Word spread across Alabama. A teacher fired for teaching black history. A woman threatened for refusing silence. A small-town activist standing up to the machine. Civil rights organizers from Montgomery reached out. Young activists came to Millstone. Church basements filled with people planning boycotts and community meetings. And at the center of it all was CJ. She didn't want to be a leader. She never planned to be one. But the community needed her voice. Steady, fearless, deeply rooted in truth. Over the next 2 years, she organized the first black voters' education workshops in the county, led negotiations demanding equal textbooks for black schools, exposed illegal literacy tests used to block black voters, helped families targeted by the sheriff's office, built alliances with local churches, women's groups, and youth activists. None of this made headlines, but it changed lives, quietly, powerfully, permanently. Yet every step forward had a price. Her house was vandalized twice. She received threats weekly. Her name was placed on a watch list by the state. And yet, she didn't stop, because CJ believed something most people never understood. Not all revolutions happen in the streets. Some happen in classrooms, living rooms, and late-night meetings when the world is asleep. Her resistance wasn't loud. It was steady. And steady resistance moves mountains. In 1962, Millstone announced it would close the black elementary school, forcing students to travel 22 miles each way. No buses were provided. No safe roads. No alternatives. It was a deliberate strategy. Make education so difficult that families would give up. CJ refused to let that happen. She led a 3-month campaign, door-to-door petitions, meetings with officials, marches with mothers and children, rallies that grew larger every week. The sheriff tried to stop her. Politicians ignored her. Newspapers mocked her. But she kept going. And in the winter of 1963, after national organizers put pressure on state officials, Millstone backed down. The school stayed open. The victory wasn't just a victory for kids. It was a message. One woman's resistance can force an entire town to change. CJ never became famous. She never wrote a book. She never stood on a national stage. But when she passed away in 2008, hundreds of former students filled her funeral service. Teachers, doctors, community leaders, parents, activists, all of them shaped by a woman who refused silence. Her story reminds us that history is not made only by the loud, the televised, the celebrated. Sometimes history is made by someone in a small town with a big heart who stands up once and keeps standing until the world has no choice but to follow. C.J. Jefferson may not be in the textbooks, but she is written in the lives of everyone she empowered. She is resistance. She is courage. She is the kind of hero America often forgets. But we will not, because this channel exists to remember the names the world left behind, to tell the stories that deserve to be heard, to honor the heroes who carried freedom on their backs, with no spotlight and no applause. If the story inspired you, taught you, or moved you, like this video, share it, and drop a comment with the name of another unsung hero you want us to uncover. And don't forget to subscribe, so together we can continue bringing these forgotten stories back to life. Thanks for watching.